Like your kid is moving around. My wife is moving around right now.
You got a notification that streaming started. Okay.
Yeah.
So it works. Hi everyone.
Hello everyone.
Okay, now I will share the link. Did we have day late saving change, or it
Yeah,
happened in the US?
yeah, exactly. So I think some people actually messaged on the Slack channel that, hey, are we not
Yeah,
having
I
this?
just saw it.
So sorry for those guys.
Yeah, I didn't
I think
realize
it
this.
will be end of this month for us.
Yeah, every time, like the spring one, the one in spring is disastrous every time. Like the one
Yeah,
in autumn is fine because you kind of just you go to bed 1 hour later, right?
yeah,
But waking up 1 hour earlier is
it's
just
horrible.
terrible.
That's true.
Okay, yeah, sorry everyone for I didn't realize that it actually happened. Like maybe for the next one, we should give. Well, to me, every time this catches me by surprise. Like I know that US moves earlier, but
Wasn't
okay.
it getting
So
removed, like the daylight saving in Europe? There was some discussions
there were
about that, right?
talks. I was very happy about that.
Yeah, me too. It doesn't make any sense anymore to do that.
Okay, so let me share my screen. I'll also open live chat on my phone, not to miss any questions. Okay, so the first thing I want to start with is the project. So by the way, how is it going with your week 7? Is everything fine? Oh, was it week 6? Yeah, something week 6. Is everything fine? And while you answer, so we put together this document here in project. And now we just finished the last, it's still a draft, but I think it's quite close to the final version. So we finished all the dimensions of this project. And yeah, maybe let's start from the beginning. So the purpose for the project will be to apply everything we learned in the course, starting from the very first lesson where we learned about infrastructure as code to the very last lesson about streaming. And here the goal is to build an end-to-end data pipeline. And the first thing you will need to decide is, actually here, so you will need to select a data set. Any data set that you're interested in, any data set that you have questions about, and then you need to think what are these questions and what kind of a dashboard you can put, can create from this data set. And the reason we ask you to think about a dashboard, this is actually a discussion Ankush and I had just half an hour ago. So he confessed me. Can I share this confession with everyone? Or I shouldn't?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, that as a data engineer, let's say, dashboard creation wasn't his main focus. Uh, so it's not something data engineers often do, create dashboards. But the reason we think it's a good idea to have a dashboard in this project is because it forces you to focus on an end-to-end problem from the data set to a dashboard, something you display at the end. And then everything you do will be guided by the dashboard you will create at the end, like what kind of transformations you do with this data set, how you orchestrate your workflow, like everything will be guided by the thing you want to answer with the dashboard. So that's why we think it's a good idea to have a dashboard at the end. It will help you with making decisions. And yeah, and one other thing you will need to decide is whether you want to do batch or streaming, like what kind of, how exactly you're going to ingest data into your data warehouse or data lake. Will it be a batch or will it be a stream? So this is another decision you will need to make. Yeah, so basically what you will need to do, you will need to get a data set, then you will need to think of questions you want to answer, to find answers in this data set, and then you will need to select streaming or batch, and you will need to put some data to your data lake, data warehouse, and then do some transformations in the data warehouse in order to prepare the queries for the dashboard. So that's roughly it. And then, as we discussed, you can use any technologies you want, so you're not restricted to the technologies we used in the course. So, for example, instead of GCP, if you want to explore Azure, you can do this. If instead of Terraform, you want to use Pulumi, you can do that as well. One thing, though, if you do this, please make sure to explain what the tool is doing, because you shouldn't expect the people who will evaluate you to know in advance about these technologies. So you can say, okay, I use, let's say, Prefect for workflow orchestration. It's a tool similar to Airflow, and then to just give enough context to tell people what exactly it is. And then after 2 weeks, when you work on a project, you will evaluate your peers, and these are the criteria you will be using for evaluating the projects of others. You can take a look at this later, but there are a few things. So first you need to describe what exactly the problem you're solving. Then we expect that you develop things in the cloud. I know not every one of you can develop things in the cloud, and then if you don't, you will just get less points, but you can do things locally. And of course, it's better if you use cloud and then you use infrastructure as code tools for that. And then for data ingestion, it kind of splits into 2 parts, because you can do this with batch and you can do it with streaming. And then there are different criteria to decide how many points you get. Maybe go through this and see if you have any questions. I don't know if it makes sense for me for us to go into details for that. This one is also, reproducibility is quite an important one. This is to kind of force you to document everything you do in such a way that it's easy to reproduce. Ankush, you want to add something?
No, I think you covered it pretty nicely. I think we should put more points on reproducibility.
Okay. to motivate. Yeah, and you see, we kind of doubled everything. So at the beginning, it was just 0, 1, 2, and then we calculated the maximum number of points, and it was just slightly more than a homework. And we thought, okay, because a project is a more complex thing, we just decided to double the points here. And then this going the extra mile, this is an optional part, but let's say we have 2 weeks for the project, but you finished everything in 1 week and you're wondering what to do, then you can explore other things, or maybe after the project is finished, you can polish it a little bit. There are a few other things you can do to, for example, make it more attractive for potential employers, like add tests, add makefiles, CI/CD pipelines, and so on. But this is something we suggest you to do, but this is not something that will be evaluated by your peers. And then when it comes to data sets, here is a data set. If you know like a list of data sets, if you know any good data sets, please create a pull request. What I will also do is I will export data from Slack, and I will share it in the announcement channel. So if somebody wants to use Slack data, you can just use that. I think that's all.
Yeah. Do we know any open source, like open or free CI/CD pipelines? I think Travis is one.
GitHub Actions is also free.
It's free? Okay.
Yeah, it is free, so I actually use it. So if for the website, for example. for
So if it's
Datadog
open
Power
source.
side. It's not open source, but you can use it. So
No, if your code is open, basically, if your code is public.
yeah, if it's public, so you just need to add this .github workflows, and you define your pipeline here in YAML.
Pipeline, yeah.
Yeah, so here I install Chrome in. Don't ask me why.
I really don't want to know why.
Okay.
Do you also install a VPN and then maybe download stuff?
No, it's actually for generating images. So for generating these preview images for podcasts and so on. So what I do is I have a template in HTML, and then it just generates it using Chrome.
Oh, nice.
It was fun to figure out how to actually do this, how to install Chrome and GitHub Actions.
That's actually pretty cool. You actually don't need to do all that stuff manually.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with questions. In the project, if we use Spark for transformation, should we embed it into Airflow? Yeah, this is something I didn't show in week 5 how to do this. Ideally, yes, because it is one of the steps in your workflow. So yeah, you should use this. You definitely can, and you should. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you decide not to, for some reason, please document it. How do we reproduce this, or how does the person evaluating it reproduce it?
But there is a Spark.
Yeah, there is.
Operator. Luigi. Oh, Airflow. Sorry, it's all habit of mine. I used to use Luigi. Yeah. So here you can see how to do this. So it's just an operator.
I think the Spark submit one would be the important one for us. The Spark submit in the last, on the right-hand side.
Oops. Now I have controls. Now the Zoom controls will go away, and I Spark submit.
There in the right index.
This one?
Right-hand side index. You see the index on the right? Yeah, this one. If you go to
Okay.
Spark submit, yeah, exactly. I think this one would be like you have to submit your Spark job, right? So maybe this one might be helpful.
Okay, to be honest, I don't really know how to use this because at work I use a wrapper around Airflow that I just write a YAML file saying I want to execute this job on this cluster. Then, yeah, our data engineers made it very simple for us to use Airflow.
Nice.
Anyways, so next one. Did you all know how awesome you are for hosting this course? I did know. Did you know, Ankush?
No, I didn't, but I'm definitely, I definitely know now, right? Thank you so much for this comment.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and we also appreciate that you're taking this course, that you're spending time on taking this course, and for all your feedback that you give us. That's thanks a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I think the feedback is really important. So please keep it coming so that we can improve the course, and maybe in the future we can have even better videos and courses.
So, Ankush, I guess this one is for you. Avro versus Parquet.
Avro and Parquet are totally different things. Avro is a row-based, Parquet is a columnar. So if you are doing like batch processing or data analytical kind of a load, Parquet is a perfect solution to use with Spark or something because it's super fast to calculate something like a sum or a count from Parquet file, or read a particular column rather than the whole column or the whole row itself. Avro, on the other hand, is very strong at providing flexibility in terms of backward and forward compatibility. So if you're using Avro with Kafka or using something like a protobuf with Kafka, that would be really useful. So think of it like different technologies altogether and use it for different use cases.
And Avro, I guess, the use case would be streaming, right? And Parquet more for batch jobs.
Yeah, I think definitely in the beginning that would be the basic use cases. Yes.
There is also, how is it called?
OCR. Yeah. That's also a columnar storage.
That's a different org. Format. Yeah. I remember watching a presentation on Berlin Buzzwords about this format. I remember seen how cool it is on the presentation, but I never actually tried it.
Neither did I.
So it's optimized row columnar. Yeah, interesting. I never knew what it stands for.
To overcome the high moments.
Okay. But is it used, widely used, or most people you just go with Parquet?
I have seen only Parquet till now, but I guess there would be some companies which will definitely be using ORC. It's not a bad technology at all. I think it's just Parquet is famous, and there are more compatible solutions with Parquet, so people just tend to use that more often.
Okay. If I have Kafka running on virtual machine 1 and Spark streaming on virtual machine 2, will I just use the external IP to connect the cluster, or are there any other settings?
I don't know. Do you know?
No, I don't think I really understand the question.
If you are in the same VPC, does it matter?
But the external, the cluster, is it Spark cluster or which cluster? Kafka cluster?
So if they are all running in the same VPC, they should be able to access each other's IP, right?
Yeah. So if you, okay, external IP. Yeah, then I guess, yeah, if you're running inside the same network, then you can use just an internal
IP, yeah.
Yeah, or if it's inside, I don't know, Kubernetes, then you can just refer to them by names of deployments. Yeah, I don't know.
I also don't know. It's really specific to that particular use case. You need to give us more, maybe on Slack, maybe explain it a bit more. Where are you running this? What kind of machines, and what are you exactly exposing in terms of the external IP?
Yeah, but usually you have a Kafka cluster, right? Some Kafka machines. Then you have a Spark cluster, right? And then Spark cluster connects to Kafka, right? And then reads data from that.
Yeah, it would just depend which VPC are you running in. So if you're running in different VPCs, then you need to expose it separately, right? Then you need to expose the IP and all that. But if you are running in the same VPC, it should not matter. You should be able to access it internally. Or, but I might be wrong. So I'm no DevOps. So.
So usually I take these things for granted. Maybe this is not a good thing, right? But I mean, they work, and I'm very grateful to the data team that makes these tools work. But I often not ask myself, okay, how is it actually configured? Because it just works until it doesn't. When it doesn't, then I go to support channel and ask, hey, can you please fix it?
I think that's also not the data team. That's also maybe a DevOps team embedded inside the data team, because you're working at OLX. That's a pretty big company. So it's maybe you have many smaller teams inside big teams, but I guess it's a more DevOps topic.
Yeah. So what should the ideal pipeline look like? How to connect everything, make reproducible with a minimal effort? Is there an example project anywhere? I don't know.
I don't know if there's an example project.
Well, we for sure we will have some good example projects after this project, right? After
Definitely.
some of you will create a great project, and it will be an example project. But right now, I cannot think of any good project that is open and I can recommend. There must be some projects, but I just don't know.
Don't know.
But ideal pipeline is such a vague thing, right?
Yeah, it's really depend upon your use case. I think for me, an ideal pipeline would be one which has the least manual steps and requires least intervention, even for adding new data sources. So if you have, like, let's say, similar kind of data, then it can consume that. If you are producing more data, then it can scale accordingly. So there is as minimum intervention from your side as possible as a data engineer. That would be a good pipeline, I would say.
So can we have
you,
an ideal pipeline in this definition if we stitch together all these open source tools like Airflow, Spark, and all that?
no, I'm pretty sure a product manager will come up with a new use case in which your ideal pipeline would not be ideal anymore.
So I think there are tools like Fivetran, which I never used, that are closer to this like more ideal one. But also in case of Fivetran, it works until, as you said, the product manager comes with a use case which no longer fits to that, and then I think because this is more like a closed source platform, then you'll need to figure out how to actually make these things work. But I have no experience working with these things, so I don't know. We at Wix love to stitch together open source products and hope for the best.
Yeah, I think so. So if you are going for open source, I think the tools which we have discussed are the, let's say, one of the most used ones out there.
Are they ideal? I wouldn't say so, but they work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of the like the enterprise ones are just way much better. They are way much easier, but then they are less flexible also. So if you are have basic use cases, perfectly fine. But if you want to do something very specific, you would be stuck with it, and you might need to pay more or ask for some improvements, which might take months to come. So these kind of things are always really depends upon what kind of maturity your company is in and what kind of use cases you have.
Yeah. I'm thinking of using AWS Redshift, EC2, and S3 for the project. Are the concepts similar to GCP?
Yeah. Yes, they are absolutely the same. So AWS Redshift would be quite similar to BigQuery, or not quite similar, but still similar. You can think of AWS Redshift as a Postgres cluster, big Postgres cluster. S3 is definitely a one-to-one of Google Cloud Storage. And I'm not sure why want you use EC2. If you want to deploy Spark jobs, maybe consider EMR. But if you're using EC2, maybe for just pipelining or Airflow, then yeah, EC2 is also pretty good. It's like just a machine.
Yeah, because here we used virtual machines for many things. Yeah, that would be an
In that
equivalent
case,
indeed.
yeah,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
if you need a remote computer that is running in the same data center as the S3 buckets, so they are very fast. So if you want to, I don't know, download something from S3 or upload something to S3, usually it's way faster if you do it from EC2.
Yeah.
And another similar concept is Athena. So it's more like I think on top of data lake, but it gives you this data warehouse feeling, so you can run SQL.
Like it's a SQL on
So
top of
I
data lake.
I would say it's something like, to me it feels like something in between BigQuery and Redshift. It's not as fast, but it's also cheaper than Redshift.
Yeah, I think you maybe comparing it with Presto might be a better fit. So it's a Presto. So basically internally also, I think it's a Presto cluster.
Yeah, it is Presto. So when I need to Google things, like need to Google syntax for Athena, I usually add Presto at the end, and then it works.
Yeah, exactly. And AWS also has a managed workflow for Apache Airflow. So if you are thinking of using Airflow, then also check that out. So you have to deploy less stuff on your own.
And I think in Google Cloud we also have that in AWS. You can create, Ankush, you mentioned already EMR.
So EMR for AWS is something like data flow.
Yeah, so you can create a Spark cluster with just one click. And I think I shared the document how you can configure a cluster. So maybe I'll share it also after the open office hours. So if you want to use that, you can do this. Oops. Have you used Airbite, Ankush?
No, what is it? Can we Google?
Airbite is something similar to Fivetran, but open source. So this is
Okay.
also like a pipeline tool. Let me Google it.
Maybe.
Airbite. Yeah, this one. Open source data integration for modern data teams. So it's very similar to that, but it's open source, and they have open source connectors. I have never used it. I want to learn it. I want to try it. It's unlikely that at work we will use it because we already have like an existing data infrastructure. But yeah, it looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think it's like a data engineering template, right? Just choose the technologies and just fit it in.
Yeah, I want to try it and see how it works. But yeah, I don't have.
Should be powerful.
Yeah, maybe if you want to explore this for a project, could be a good idea. But on the other hand, if you don't spend too much time on that, so if you want to give it a try, time bound it, and if you see that you cannot figure out how to make it work, then move on and use a tool from the course to make sure that you can finish the project. Okay. AWS datasets are already in S3 bucket. Can we bring it to Redshift, or do we need to bring it to our own bucket first?
Do you know? I don't know.
I do not know. I don't think I used public datasets for that.
Yeah, but I think if it's AWS, it should be possible to do it without any restrictions.
Yeah, it's probably
theoretically
a public like open bucket like we have with these taxi trips, right? And then I think theoretically you just do the same thing as you would do with your own private S3 buckets.
Yeah. I think the problem would be if the open source data is in Google Cloud storage, and then maybe you definitely need to move it to an S3.
Okay. So the next one, do we have to use infrastructure as code tools, or we can set up data warehouse with UI? Let me go back to the criteria. And so here we have one of the criteria is cloud. And then, so you get 0 points if you do not use cloud at all. Then you get 2 points if you use cloud and use UI for setting up things. And then you get 4 points if you use cloud and you use infrastructure as code tools. So yes, you can use UI. You don't have to use Terraform or anything similar. But if you use, you will just get 2 more points. I guess I can just mark it as answered, right?
Yeah.
If somebody does not have a GCP account and wants to run our project, how can it be graded, and vice versa if we need to connect to AWS Azure-based project? Yeah, that's a nice question. Well, use your judgment. So if you want to try it, then we cannot force you to register an account in Azure and then run it there. If you want, you can do this. If you don't, then maybe just look at the code and then see if you see any errors there. So it's really up to you here.
Maybe maybe when we are doing the matching, we can like ask for criteria, like what did you use, and maybe we can match corresponding people to that.
That's a nice idea. Let's see. I'm afraid it will complicate things a bit, and I already have a script for matching, and it doesn't use any criteria, just random. So
now we need to modify that script with one column.
Yeah, perhaps. Let's see.
Should be easy enough.
Should be easy. Yeah.
Yeah, we can just group them into different things and then
so when we create a form, right, for submitting, we can ask what cloud you used, right?
Exactly.
Yes, you're right. That makes sense. But what we did in machine learning Zoomcamp is only those who wanted to re-execute the whole thing, re-executed. And then it's up to you. Like if you want to learn really, if you really want to learn from this project, because you execute this not just for grading, but also for learning. And if you want to learn more, you really want to learn how these things work, you execute and then you learn by doing this. But if you don't have time, let's say executing on a different cloud might take a lot of time, right? If you don't have that much time, we cannot really ask you to invest like, I don't know, 5 hours into figuring out how Azure works, right? So use your own judgment here, and yeah, that's, I guess, the answer. But we will try to do matching to minimize these things. Anything to add? No? During project review, will we be able to contact the project creator to ask questions, or it is anonymous? Well, it's not really anonymous because you will be asked to submit a link to your GitHub, and then yeah. I don't know if there was a need to ask questions in the previous course.
I think
Maybe we can ask for contact information in the project description. I don't know. But do we need?
I think we should not encourage that because it might be unfair for different people. First of all, maybe you're not available to answer all the questions. And I think, or let's put it like this. If you are grading it, maybe it's unfair, but if you want to learn, then definitely it's helpful. So I think the grading should be done based upon what is submitted, because it's really important also to document all the steps.
And then, yeah, I guess if you need to contact the author, then it means that, yeah, you cannot really give 4 points, right, for this one.
Yeah, in that case. So maybe instructions are clear in the repo itself, not via contact.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't remember this being a problem in the previous course. So maybe you can also create an issue in GitHub. But yeah, I don't know. What if our data doesn't require further transformation once it's in a data warehouse? Do we still need to use dbt? Well, I guess if you want to do a dashboard, right, then you will have some aggregates. I have hard time trying to imagine a data set that in raw form you can just take and put it to a dashboard. Maybe if it's already grouped, right? If it's already aggregated, but then it's probably a very small data set, and that's not it's not suitable for this course. Yeah, I think you should maybe select a reasonably big data set that does require transformation, right?
Exactly.
But if you're in doubt, just ask in Slack. Because I really don't know what could be such a data set that you can just put on a dashboard without any transformations.
Yeah, some minimum transformations would be required.
Yeah, still like, I don't know, some counts, some group bys, maybe joins.
Exactly. I think it's better to choose a data set which will allow you to do all that.
I have been catching up and have been doing homeworks, but not turning in. Will I be able to turn in the final project? Yes, you will be. You can submit the project. So as we promised at the very beginning, we will give certificates based on project completion, not based on the homework. So if you're catching up right now and you didn't do all the homework, it's fine. So if you caught up, you know what to do, you can take part in a project. Anything to add? No?
No.
What do you use for recording the videos? Ankush, what do you use?
I just use QuickTime in Mac, and then I use iMovies to edit it.
Okay.
That's why you don't see my face. But I like your tool more, actually.
So what I use is Loom. So I can just press a button right now, and now, yeah, you see it starts recording. And now what I'm saying, it is recording right now. And then I press another button, and then it just creates this thing that I can share. That's pretty cool. This is very convenient. Yeah, see. So I really love this tool. So I use
How do you edit it?
And then there is download thing.
Oh, okay.
So I download this, and I use this KD Gden Live. So I actually finished editing the video for a different course for ML Zoomcamp. There was one video that I kept putting off till the. But yeah, so this one is done, and I use Gden Live. I don't know how to pronounce it. I know it's KDE because this is like a thing from Linux. You know, there are different window managers like GNOME, KDE. So this is coming from there, and it works surprisingly well on Windows as well. So I used this on Linux, and when I moved to Windows, it also works here. It actually works even better than on Linux. I find it surprising.
Nice.
And yeah, it's of course free and open source.
Oh, really? Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah. And Loom is not free. It costs like $5 per month or something like this. So I use it not only for course, but for other things as well. And there is a free tool. Well, for recording documentation, let's say, for documenting things.
Recording documentation. Oh, so you are recording documentation and putting it in OLX.
Not for OLX, for Datadog Cloud.
Okay.
Yeah, so for documenting processes. And then the other tool I use for recording, which is also free, is OBS. I hope it loads it. Yeah, so there is a virtual camera, so I can start virtual camera right now, and then, for example, do that. See, cool, right? And yeah, here I can use this. There's just start recording, and then I can it can capture screen and then save it to a file. So Victoria also uses OBS for recording videos.
But I think
so this is yes, sorry.
I think the best thing I like about Loom is that like you have a feedback, right? Like you can in the video you are talking and you have the face there.
The face, and it's cool that it's shareable immediately. So you can just record, and then okay, here's the homework solution, and then next day when I don't know, well, after sleeping, then I upload it to YouTube. So I don't need to do that. I can just share this file. Well, of course, it's unedited. So then I can also edit this and then upload to YouTube, but it's shareable immediately. This is pretty cool.
That's nice.
And I don't know what Sejal used. Do you know what she uses for recording? So I know that a couple of videos we recorded in Zoom. So we just had a call and then recorded this. But I don't know what she used for other videos. Okay, just wondering if Spark could also handle the streaming data like Kafka does. I see Spark also has Spark streaming. Could I use that also to substitute Kafka?
You can use it to substitute Kafka streams, yes. So if that's what you mean, yes, you can definitely use Spark streaming to consume data from Kafka and then do your transformations, joins, windowing, whatever you want, and then put it out to another Kafka topic or to some other file system, whatever you want.
But you still need the broker, right?
Of course, you need a Kafka cluster. Like you need the broker of the Kafka to actually publish messages to Kafka, but you don't have to use the Kafka streaming thingy. Because I think as a lot of people have realized, the Python library Frost is very limited, right? So if you are a Python person and you are really want to use streaming, then Spark streaming might be the only option.
Then do you know if Spark can connect to Kinesis in AWS?
Yes, Spark can connect to Kinesis also.
Okay. So then
It's
you
just a
have
connector.
like multiple options, right? So you have like a different, I don't know, brokers, different, how do you call these tools? Like streaming engines,
Broker,
sort of
yeah.
brokers, yeah.
Yeah.
So it can be Kafka, Kinesis, Pulsar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are there others?
You can basically connect to Google Cloud Storage. You can basically connect to BigQuery. You can connect to anything you want. Like not anything you want, but whatever connectors are available. But there are lots of connectors which are available in Spark, so you can basically do that very easily.
Okay, so you do that, and then you have your Spark streaming thing, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest limitation also of Kafka Streams. So Kafka Streams is only Kafka to Kafka. So if you want to do something else, you need to either export your data into Kafka or just use something else like Spark Streaming.
And for Flink, you can do pretty much the same thing. You can
Pretty much
connect
the
it to
same things.
Kafka, to Pulsar, to Kinesis, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Do you know any literature for testing in data pipelines? I don't know.
So I basically know, and so what we use is basically unit testing. So we rigorously unit test our small components, and then there can be an end-to-end test to test the whole pipeline, basically. So that's the literature, I would say.
I think there is a thing called Data Kitchen. And yeah, they have a book, I think. Where it is? Yeah. Blog white paper. Books. So they have this data ops cookbook. I think it goes a bit about into data quality topics. I think they talk a bit about that, but I don't remember what they actually how detailed it is. Maybe this is something you can check. Have
What's
you
the,
seen this one?
no, I'm just checking it out right now. So what's the point of Data Kitchen?
They, I think, consultants.
Okay.
Yeah, stop band aiding your data pipeline. But yeah, I think they consult on how to do data ops properly.
That's nice.
Yeah, and they have. So here, of course, you need to provide your. Why doesn't work? You need to provide your email so they can try to
Contact
get
you.
you as a client. Yeah, but this is multiple people told me that this is a useful book.
Okay. I actually just
You
I
just
just filled the form up.
you traded your data.
I traded my data, yes. But I know how to put them in spam, so
Oh, maybe it will be useful. Maybe they will tell you
okay.
about new resources.
Yeah, that's true. I will. Let's see how much they contact me. If they are contacting me too much, then maybe.
So this is a question for me. Would you consider displaying the question submitted to Slido based on arrival time? I think this question was already last time. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, it makes sense in some cases when you have a follow-up question to a question, maybe. But then I think voting makes more sense because maybe if a question is more interesting for, I don't know, 3, 4 people, 5 people, then to me voting is more natural. So I don't know. Maybe.
Hmm. I think voting is more beneficial for the bigger group.
Link to
But
Alvaro.
so
Sorry.
sorry, Alexa. But if some question is not answered, please ping that in Slack, and I'm pretty sure somebody will pick it up.
Yeah, link to Alvaro notes doesn't work. So maybe Alvaro, if you're watching this.
Stream processing. You missed the G in the end.
Yeah, okay. Alvaro, if you're watching this, please fix it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess this is how you find the notes. Where's README? Maybe Alvaro forgot to commit it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe he in advance put the link there.
It also says incomplete.
Yeah, should it be? No, I don't know. Anyways, Alvaro, if you're watching this, please fix it. I propose designing total cloud-based automatic pipelines using GCP. Use GCP tools for the project. How do I address reproducibility in this case? Well, by documenting your project. So just make sure you write everything, then you show how to run the thing by making instructions. So maybe one example could be, let's say, Datadog group. So if we take here one of the models here, I don't think my code here is good. No, let's go with Docker, for example. So there is some documentation that actually shows what you need to do to run this thing. So something like this, a little bit more maybe descriptive. That like if you like first describe what the project is about, then how to run these things, like what are the things that are needed, what are the accounts you need to create, what are the commands you need to run. So somebody who is looking at this doesn't just see a blank README MD file, but there is some information, and then if you follow along this information in sequence and execute things, it works. So this is what I mean by reproducibility. And one tool I really like for making it even easier is Make. So you can create a bunch of Make files. We do not cover them in this course, but they're pretty useful. So maybe I can show you an example. So instead of typing long commands, you just do make all, and then it executes this, and this. So it's a cool thing. So having these scripts, but at the very minimal, having this documentation that describes what you need to do with code snippets. This is what we mean by reproducibility.
So, and if you're working with cloud, sorry, Alexei, finish, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that like having this requirements.txt file is also important. Like ideally, if you pin versions there, so when you write, I don't know, Python Kafka equals version, this is also like super good. Yeah, that's it. That's the end of the thought.
So I would also say if you are using cloud-based, then you can assume that the person who's reviewing it would have a cloud, also the same cloud. So Google Cloud Platform would be available with that person, and you can and then you can use Terraform, right? So if you're creating buckets, then use Terraform, and then maybe in the README you can say the first step would be to create these buckets. So you create these buckets using this Terraform file, and that's how you run it. So for that, the person would need to do the Google Cloud authentication. So the same way you did Google Cloud authentication, you can also highlight that in the documentation. The first step would be to do the Google Cloud authentication, and so on. So just maybe you can use the same, like the same criteria as that the cloud provider is the same, and then you proceed from there.
Yeah, please don't forget these steps like authentication. So because if you assume that they are authenticated, when they run, they might not be, and yeah, there will be an error. And yeah, okay, I think that's all, right? Will I be able to kickstart entire data pipeline, including Airflow, by using just Terraform, by enabling Docker provided in Terraform? No. I'm not sure about the last part, like how Docker provided.
You cannot.
Terraform. Yeah.
Can you run stuff from Terraform? I think Terraform is more just for, yeah. So you can set up an Airflow cluster with Terraform, but I don't think you can execute a job there after that.
So it's like you use Terraform to prepare the environment, to prepare the thing where you will run it, and then you will need to actually run something. So there will be at least two separate commands, right? So first the Terraform, I don't know, apply, and then you know, Python run or something like this. I'm marking this as answered, right?
Yep.
Are we allowed to contact the instructors directly to discuss projects? There are things I'm unsure about my project, as I'm using some new tools. I think it's best if you ask these things in the channel, because others will be also interested in learning the answer, so it scales better. Instead of everyone writing us directly, we just answer once and then everyone sees the answer, right? And then also others can answer this. So if we are not available right now, somebody who knows the tool that maybe we don't, I don't know, for example, I don't know Pulsar, but somebody maybe who from the students knows it, and then they will be able to help. So it's best to use the channel for that and not contact us directly. Anything to add?
That's it. No, nothing. I think it's good.
Okay.
It works now.
Cool.
There you go.
I don't know, should I quickly fix it? Or maybe I'll just wait till Alvaro does it.
No, it says it's fixed, right? No?
Let's see.
It's fixed there, but not maybe in the link, yeah. Yeah, just do it later.
Okay, since I'm here already.
Oh, man.
Okay. How much time we have to submit the final project? You mean, like, how much time do you get? Right? How much time you have? So the deadline will be next Monday. Or not next Monday, but in 2 weeks. Right? So it will be 28th of March. And then you will have 1 week for doing the peer reviewing. I think I can mark this as answered, right?
Yeah.
Do you know of any examples code where object-oriented programming is applied to data engineering? Do you know?
If you're using Java or Scala, you might be somehow using object-oriented programming under the hood. So let's say for Scala, if you're using Spark, you would be creating some user classes. If you're not using data frame, if you're using RDD. And if you create that, that's already object-oriented programming in some ways, right? Obviously, it would not be as extensive as it might be for some libraries if you are working on some libraries, but you can definitely do that. But I would still stick with data frames and maybe other stuff rather than using core object-oriented programming technologies for data engineering. What do you say, Alex?
I think for streaming, like producers, consumers, they are objects usually, right?
No, so they are just bytes. So you can convert them in Python. You can convert it just to a dictionary, and in Scala, you can also just convert it to a dictionary if you want.
But I think the thing that consumes, let's say you have this Kafka consumer, right? Usually, because I'm trying to, I remember that in Kubernetes we kind of used this our own thing. So that was a class, and then in this class we would have a method like consume, then that we define, we extend from a base class, right? And then we say for this consumer, the run method or the consume method is this one, and then we just define the logic for processing the message, and the logic for, I don't know, pulling the message, committing it lives elsewhere.
Yeah, but that's just a style of programming. It's like by object-oriented programming, I understand more like interfaces, inheritance,
okay,
polymorphism, and all that. And I'm like, that's why I'm saying don't overcomplicate it, because it's just data.
I think we did overcomplicate it in that example.
Okay. See, you can use it, but you might just overcomplicate things.
Yeah. But I think it was inheritance. So we have a base object that can pull the message, that can commit, right? And then we extend it, and then we define this consume method. It's useful. Maybe it would be easier if we just had a function consume that is doing the same thing, right?
Exactly.
Anyways, yeah, I think in some
You can definitely do
cases,
it.
yeah, in
Yeah.
some cases you can have a better modularity, like modular, nicely documented code if you use OOP, object-oriented programming. In some cases, it's just a mess and you don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
But
For simple
you
stuff,
can.
you generally won't need it.
I will be extracting weekly rated data for my project and appending this to a data warehouse table. However, unsure what kind of DBT transforms are required. It depends on what exactly you want to do with rated data, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I would focus on the final goal I want to calculate. Let's say for Reddit data, you might want to say what are the most keywords being used or something like that. And in that case, your transformations will directly depend upon that, right? So
Or, I don't know, active number of posts per day, right? In a specific
exactly,
track.
or per hour distribution of posts. Like I'm pretty sure in US it goes up during the daytime and it goes down. So like what are you trying to answer? That's the first question I will focus on. And once I know the answer of that, maybe then I will know which transformations to apply.
Yeah, that's why we want, for this project, we want, the end goal of this project is a dashboard, right? So what exactly do you want to put on the dashboard? And then go from there. Like for this dashboard and for the data you use, what kind of transformations you need to do in order to go from this data to the dashboard, right? And then it will become clear that you need to do this group by, you need to join with this, I don't know, that table and so on.
Yeah.
Okay, is it possible to increase the deadline for the project? I might struggle with just 2 weeks. We want to keep it at 2 weeks in order to, if we give more, then you can get too ambitious. And then you decide, okay, I will use Pulsar, I will use, I don't know, Prefect, I will use Azure, and then you might go crazy, and then it might not work well, right? And so we don't want you to be too ambitious. We want you to select something simple and then have an end-to-end workflow, something that you can do in 2 weeks. So that's why we want on purpose to make it only 2 weeks, not more, because if we give you more time, then just come up with something simple. But
Yeah, the idea is not to have a full-fledged production-ready system, right? So keep it simple, but also use all the technologies and see how the grades are being given. So you can basically then develop maybe a bit more sophisticated solution. But I think it should be reasonable in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and of course, if there are any problems, if you are struggling with something, we have Slack. You can ask your question there, and people are very helpful in our Slack. If we do not immediately answer, usually when I check channel, I see that most of the questions are already answered. So this is really amazing. Thanks for your help there, and I'm pretty sure if you get stuck and if you ask a question there, people will help you, and we will also try to help you, of course. So yeah, don't afraid to ask for help and don't get too ambitious. Just try to do something simple, keep it simple, and you'll do fine in 2 weeks. What are data models that we should use for warehousing? Star Schema, Data Vault 2.0, what's the most relevant nowadays?
The simple answer is I don't know. I think we should keep this answer or save this question for Victoria. Vic, I think she would be, the best person to ask this. So maybe we can put this in the Slack channel and tag her.
But also, like for example, for these taxi trips, right? Do we use any star schemas or anything? Well, it's kind of star with just one ray, right?
Yeah, kind of like that. I think the most common one is star, right? But I don't know. I have not done enough data modeling to know what Data Vault 2.0 would provide us for a particular data set. So I don't know right now what's the most relevant thing, honestly.
But if you look at the criteria, you notice that there is no dimension that is called data modeling, right? So, and then instead of dbt, like you don't have to use dbt because most of these things you can do with Spark if you like Spark more. If you don't like Spark, you can go with dbt. So even though they are a little bit different, but at the end they are sometimes replaceable. And for example, you can maybe put the data in a data lake and transform the data with Spark and then put it to a data warehouse in a form that is ready to be queried by your dashboard. Or you can decide to put the data, the raw data in your data warehouse and then do transformation there with dbt. So it's up to you. You can go with either approach. And yeah, I don't think there is any, like there is right or wrong here.
Exactly.
Even if you don't turn the project in 2 weeks, can we still get our project reviewed and some feedback? Yes and no. So let me tell you why no first. So no is because we use peer reviewing, and if project is already finished, then there are no peers that can review your project. Because we cannot, let's say, support the course forever. That's why, yeah, if you want to get your project reviewed, you need to do it now, right? And then you need to submit it with the deadline, and then your peers will review and give you feedback. So this is why no. I also said yes. So yes, because remember a few weeks ago we made an announcement that there will be another project cohort right after the first one. So we will finish the project and then we will have another project immediately after that for people who, because of the work in Ukraine, cannot work on the project right now. Yeah, for them and everyone else who for some reasons cannot work on the project right now, we give you a chance to work on this. So let's say you just joined the course and you cannot catch up with everything, then you can submit your project in the second should I say trial, second iteration, second cohort, I don't know, but basically after 1 month, after 3 weeks, we will have another project cohort, and then you can submit your project there. Yeah, but after that, no, there will be no way to submit the project again. I think we should be wrapping up, so maybe the last one. Is there another office hour sessions next Monday in 2 weeks at graduation? Well, next week, yes, we will do it. The week after, maybe yes. But then I don't know. Let's see, depending on how much questions you will have. But I think if you have questions, it makes sense to do it. I guess that's all.
Yeah, that's it.
You want to say anything before we finish today?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining, for asking questions, and then please, if you haven't selected the dataset right now for the project, do it now. If you have problems with selecting the dataset, ask questions in Slack, and we will help you decide. So I guess that's it, and have fun with the project.
All the best, guys.